Hi there. I'd like to talk with you about what to do when you get your first teaching position. So, where do you even begin? I'd like to share some tips that are not found in the book, even though Harry Wong does a wonderful job explaining what to do to prepare for that first day of school. There are still a few extra little pieces that I'd like to share that come with experience. So, what I would say is imagine you get that phone call from a principal, likely, and you were just hired for a new position in an elementary school. So, some of the things that you'll want to do right away is collect some information so you can start preparing for your classroom. Sometimes teachers they have all summer to prepare, and sometimes they're hired after school has begun and everything in between. We've had people who were hired and school starts the next week, and again, it's wonderful if you have time to prepare. I will say administrators are very busy. So when you do have that opportunity to talk with he or she, some things that you'll want to ask for are these. And you'll be so glad you did, because it would be terrible if you get this job and then you don't know how to plan accordingly. So here are some tips from me. One is find out the names and the email addresses of your co-teachers, the other teachers of your grade level. They will definitely be people you want to contact as soon as possible for multiple reasons, and I'll share why. Also, find out if there is a class schedule available with the times that are designated for the specials. So, for example, when will your class be going to library or recess or lunch, that type of thing. That way, as you are lesson planning, you can plan around those activities and have an even better plan. You'll want to ask for a school calendar so you can know exactly what's going on for the year, especially different activities like professional development for teachers or days that are off or parent teacher conferences, that type of thing. You'll want to ask for your school handbook so you can align your policies with your school rules. So, for example, if there is a cell phone policy, you'll need to do what the district or the school building has designated as their policy rather than just doing whatever feels right to you. So, you always want to start with your school policies before making any of your own rules. All right. You'll also want to find out if there is a certain curriculum that's being used. Maybe they just bought a new series and they'd like all of the teachers to use this new series for, let's say, math or science or reading. Be sure you find that out, because you will need to follow as they would like you to follow. Some schools have a curriculum intact in different subjects, some do not, and some have a little bit both, where they do have a curriculum in certain subjects that they'd like all the teachers to use, but then maybe other subjects they don't, and you can teach how you want to teach using the resources that you come up with. Also, before you go buying things for your classroom, find out what supplies are on hand. I know that when I was hired at my first position, they had a closet that was just filled with things like staplers, staples, paper clips, tape, whistles for recess duty, grading pens, that type of thing, dry erase markers. So if you are excited about getting those things for your classroom, think about how you might want to spend your money on the things that they don't provide, like maybe borders for your classroom or some of the other types of supplies that you might need that they don't have. Of course, every school is different. Some schools will give you a budget and allow you to spend a certain amount. Some will not. But if they do have that is definitely something to ask about. You'll want to find out if there's a scope and sequence and standards that they are following. Do they have that broken down for everyone? Some schools have a curriculum director or some kind of an instructional coach that can help with this type of thing. But again, if the work's already been done, it would be really great if you can follow along like the rest of your co-teachers. Also, what are their safety plans? So for tornado drills, for fires, for intruder drills. So find out the plan for safety. And on the first day of school, you always want to go through those plans with your students so they are prepared. All right. if there's any kind of back to school information. So, are they going to have a back to school night? Are they going to have teachers in for a certain amount of days to have professional development before school starts? Is there anything like that that you need to know? Also, what are your contract hours? When are you to be in the school building each morning, and what time does your contract hour end at the end of the day? You'll want to find that out. Also, are there keys that you need or a fob that you need for your uh, school building? Some schools have an alarm system that you need to know about, and they'll teach you how to disman it, and that can be interesting. Some schools allow you to go to the school anytime to work on your classroom. Some will not allow teachers to go on the weekends because they want teachers to take a break. And it just really depends on the school. So that's something to find out too. Also, who do you need to notify if you're absent? Do you have a website where you check in digitally to let them know that you are requesting a substitute? Do you make a phone call to a secretary or to the principal? And find that out. Also, do they have an approximate number of students you can expect in your classroom? And they might even have a class roster ready for you. So if that's true, it's great to have so you can start thinking about how you want to arrange your classroom, how many students can fit in your classroom, and having that number is really helpful. I will say, always be ready to add one or two more because there are always some late arrivals, and that can happen too. And ask if there will be any other adults in your classroom. So, for example, a paraprofessional or a Title I teacher who will be helping in your classroom. So you can, again, plan accordingly. All right, so those are questions for your principal. And if you'd like, you can take along the checklist that I've typed up for you. If that's a lot to remember, and it might be easier that way. So down below, you can find the Where to Begin checklist. All right. Some things to ask your grade level team members. These are the teachers you're working with of the same grade. Again, ask more about the curriculum. There are some schools where the teachers of the same grade, they get together and do all their planning together. They try to stay on the same page, so to speak, with their lesson planning, and they are all doing about the same thing. Some schools are different, where everyone's kind of doing their own thing. So you definitely want to find out, are they planning together, because you want to get in on that if that's the case. And if this is something you're going to be doing on your own, you want to be ready for that too. Also, I'd ask more about the supplies. This is usually when you find out that there's a certain teacher that retired and left things for any of the new teachers that come in. That's always great. And find out, do they have team meetings? Do they get together and collaborate maybe at lunch on a certain day or after school or before school on a certain day? It's also good to ask if there are any grade level projects throughout the year. I know that where I was teaching, the fourth grade would always have a wax museum at a certain time of the year and a poetry coffee house at a different time of the year. So it's good to know what to expect. So again, as you're lesson planning, you can start thinking about how you want to scaffold your instruction to lead up to those projects and events. Also, are there any school-wide celebrations throughout the year? I know the school I taught in for years had a book character day, and it was a whole week of activities that tied to reading. And it was important to be aware of what to expect from that as well. Also, are there any other online tools that are being used to help? So maybe your school is using Seesaw or some kind of an online resource to help with the planning. And finally, be sure to ask about staff meetings. When are those scheduled? You want to be ready for that and have that on your calendar and in your plan book. Okay, if you find out that your teachers don't necessarily collaborate and you're planning alone, I would recommend going about it this way. Begin by plugging in all of your specials. Those are those designated times that I talked about earlier, like recess and lunch and music class, PE, that type of thing. And then you can take a look at where the extra time is and calculate how much time is left between those specials so you can decide where to plug in each of your content areas. You'll also want to find out if you are departmentalized or self-contained. So self-contained means you have the same students all day long, you have your homeroom, and you teach them all of the core subjects. If you are departmentalized, you would have where you have a homeroom group, but they will leave your class and go to another teacher for different content areas. And you would teach all of the, for example, I taught all the social studies and reading to all of the students, and the teacher next door taught the math and the social or the science. And so that happens in some districts. We have had it both ways, both self-contained and departmentalized. I tend to like to have the same students all day because I like to teach across a curriculum and really get to know my students. And so that was my preference, but got to go with the flow and do what's best for the whole. All right. Also, when you look at state standards, and you know by now, they are overwhelming. So hopefully you will have, again, some standards written out in friendly form. Sometimes, again, the teachers will have this, or a curriculum director, instructional coach will have this, where rather than looking at the standards on KSDE, for example, with pages and pages of text, they're broken down and simplified, just chunked, where the most important parts are standing out, where you can get right to the different components that you are going to be teaching. All right. I will say, when you are teaching, try to teach across the curriculum when possible. It is so much more fun, and you can get more bang for your buck doing that. So anytime you are having, let's say your students do a research paper in social studies, have them read that paper to the class. And so you've got your writing tied in, you've got your social studies and research, and also speaking and listening skills happening all at once. When you can, divide concepts up by semester, quarter, month, week, and day. It can be kind of overwhelming when you think about everything you need to teach. So I like to just say, okay, this semester I'm teaching these things. The second semester I'm teaching these things. All right, now let's go down to each quarter and divide it down to quarter by quarter, and then month by month, and then week by week, and then day by day. Don't feel like you need to have every lesson plan for the entire year all set. You just want a general idea of which semester, quarter, and month you're planning on teaching all of these things. You'll want at least 2 full weeks of lesson plans ready to go, but be ready to make some adjustments, because what great teachers do is they adjust to best meet the needs of their students. So if you have something planned, you may have a group that needs more time, so you may need to change how your plans are written and give some more time so they can get the full impact of that concept. However, you may have a group that works more quickly than what you had planned, and you may need to move up some events that you have ready to go. So keep that in mind as you are planning. Also, something you want to be ready for, have an emergency substitute teacher folder with 3 days of activities. Even though you're probably not going to be gone, you'll want to have that just in case. And I would recommend putting activities that your students have done before. So for example, I know that we loved using the weekly reader in our classes. So I would always take a weekly reader that we didn't get to, and I would keep that, or maybe one from the year before, where I have that stack of however many, and I would leave that because they always loved the weekly reader. They knew what to do. It incorporated social studies and reading, and had an activity at the end, as you know. But something like that is really nice to do. It's difficult to leave something brand new, and try not to leave busy work. We want to leave something where the students are actually going to make the most of their day. So, but leave more than enough, because you never know. Okay, well, I hope this gave you a few things to think about when thinking about getting started. I will say that as much as you want to get in there and start decorating your room and making it look a certain way, I will tell you, this happens every year. The copy room will break down. Everyone's trying to use it. I found that I like to get in early. So I found that most of the teachers would go in at the beginning of August and get several copies made. So I would go in July and make my copies then before everyone was there so I could accomplish more. And I would have that taken care of before the copier got weary on us and we had to call the repair person to come and take care of it. Also, keep in mind that oftentimes your custodians will be doing things like cleaning the carpets or waxing the tile floors, and you might not be able to get into your room when you think you will. So try to find out when that's happening because that can take some time to accomplish. And maybe someone you know has been known to crawl in a window to get into their classroom to work on their classroom when the tile floors were being waxed, all in the name of education. All right. Well, this is a lot of information for you. Again, you can look below to have the checklist to help you. So when you do get that job, you can go right back to it. And I hope that if you have any questions, you know you can contact me and I'd be happy to talk it out with you. Have a great one.